Hey kids, today we're going to be talking about homebrew judging. A couple of years ago I took the test to become a homebrew judge and I achieved exactly a 70, which is the minimum score you can get on the test and still achieve a certification. I've judged maybe a handful of events, but I'm going to talk to you about how the judging process works and try to judge a beer here for you, and we'll talk about how it goes. This here is a beer from my friend Craig. It's an Imperial Stout, category 13F in the BJCP book. What we first do is inspect the bottle to make sure it's alright. I already did this because I wanted to see what the beer was like, so I knew a little bit about what I was talking about before I jumped into this quick video. Generally we just want to make sure there's nothing growing in the bottle, make sure the headspace is about 2 fingers, make sure the cap's on right, and this bottle's been painted by my friend Craig's lovely wife, and we're going to start judging. So we pour the beer in the glass. This beer pours a little bit heady, but the head is a dark tan, very resilient head, which is the appearance category. According to the book, it should be very dark reddish to jet black, and I believe we are in the jet black with a little bit of brown in it category. The head should be deep tan to dark brown, and the beer should be opaque, which it certainly is. Next we like to check the aroma. This one has about a medium roastiness to it. It's not really warmed up yet. Probably should have taken it out of the fridge a little earlier. It's kind of roasty. I don't smell any hops. There's no diacetyl or any solventy aroma, so there's no general flaws. The book says that we should have low to moderately high characteristics of roasted malt, coffee, dark chocolate, and possibly some plums or prunes, raisins. Should be very malty, and alcohol may be present, but it shouldn't be hot and solventy. So I'm going to go ahead and judge the aroma category. Aroma category is out of 12 points. I would say, as far as aroma goes, it's probably about a 9. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like off the charts amazing. It's not like super roasty, super any of the characteristics that they want. And at this point, we normally write in a bunch of comments about how they could have achieved more aroma and such. I'm not going to do that for the sake of the video, but in general, homebrew judges like to give as much feedback as possible so you know why your beer scored the way it did and what you can do possibly in the future to improve that. And then the appearance, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 3. 3 points is the highest maximum. I'm actually going to give it a 2 out of 3, only because the head was so big. I think it was a little overcarbonated. And then we move on to the flavor category. According to the book here, the flavor should have low hops, no diacetyl, roasted malt grain, bitter unsweetened chocolate, cocoa, strong coffee, slightly burnt grain. Should have high alcohol content. Should be warming but not hot. Should be relatively dry and sweet in the finish. A little bit of lingering roastiness, bitterness, and malt backbone supported though by hops, so like balanced beer. This beer has a lot of chocolatiness to it, good amount of roastiness, maybe a hint of coffee. It is a little warm, which I like in an Imperial. has a very nice sweet dry finish, which is per protocol. I'm going to give this beer a 16 out of 20 for flavor. And then we move on to the mouthfeel. Fortunately, I poured myself a backup glass of this ahead of time because I wasn't sure how heady it was going to be after sitting for a while. Mouthfeel is very creamy. Despite the giant head that it poured with, it's actually only moderately medium carbonation, which is nice. It's got that slight warmth in the back of the mouth, which I find pretty appealing. According to the style guidelines here, it should be gentle, smooth alcohol warmth, not syrupy or under attenuated. It should be low to moderate carbonation, full to very full chewiness for the body, and velvety, luscious texture. And I actually think this beer does that very well. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Now we get to the overall impression. The overall impression is how well did I think overall this beer fit to the guidelines. And I'm going to give it probably a 7 out of 10. It's a pretty good beer. I wouldn't quite put it on par with like the commercial examples, which would be Victory Storm King. That's the only one listed here. I think there's a lot more commercial examples that you would look to. Maybe the Sparker Imperial, Founders Imperial for sure I really like. And then we add up the score. So 11. I'm giving this beer a 38 out of 50, which is a pretty good score. Like, it's pretty seldom that you see a score that I've seen a score that high. In fact, the judges sheet that I'm copying off of to know what a judging sheet should look like was my Raspberry ESB from a previous beer where I got a 28 out of 50, and if I recall, it was not that good of a beer, and 28 is probably a generous score. Generally, we don't give scores below like a 17, I think, unless the beer is like completely undrinkable. And again, all these comments here are meant to provide good feedback and help brewers make better beer. We always use a mechanical pencil because the aroma of sharpened pencils can distract from the actual aromas of the beer. And we always use pencils because we talk about the beers afterwards, and sometimes we didn't notice things that we should have noticed, or other people didn't notice something. So it helps to talk about the beers afterwards. I'm doing this by myself, so obviously my score could be way off, but generally I wind up within like 5 or 6 points of the other judges I've judged with, and generally we try to get all the scores into that category by the end of the judging. So that's how you judge homebrew. Thank you to Craig for this delicious beer that I'm going to enjoy finishing, and that's how you judge homebrew. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later.